This is Gabriela on the scene today with Talk Network Radio. We have a real treat for you just around the corner, and that is Empowered Living with Jeff Byrd. Jeff is the owner of Jeff Byrd Coaching, and he will be coming to you weekly to teach you more about empowered living. Now, let's join Jeff already in the studio.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Byrd with Jeffrey Byrd Coaching, and this is Empowered Living. Today, we have a very important topic before us, especially in light of some recent events that have occurred. And the topic is the incredible power of listening. And most people in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, where I am, many around the country and around the world are very aware of another shooting that we had out here at the Municipal Center in Virginia Beach last Friday afternoon. And in that, 12 people lost their lives because of a angry, disgruntled employee who came in and decided to open fire on his colleagues and some strangers who were just in doing business that afternoon. And unfortunately, these reports are becoming more common. I saw a report last week that went around on Wikipedia that just so far in 2019, there have been 138 mass shootings. And that's where there were 4 or more people injured. Not all of them were in schools or business places. Some were at parties, some were in other areas, but 138. And we're not even halfway through the year yet. So this is becoming an epidemic. And whenever I hear a report like this, I just stop and think and have to ask myself, what could possibly have prevented this from happening? Is there anything that could have been done? And I'm not sure that I have any definite answers. No matter what we do, that doesn't mean we have a guaranteed result from other people. We can do our very best, and that doesn't mean that people will respond positively to that. But I think that maybe there are some things that could help prevent these things. And of course, when you get a situation like this didn't happen overnight. This has been going on. Something's been in motion and building for a long period of time. May have started in childhood or early development. I'm aware of that. And but no one gets up in the morning and says, okay, I've had a well-adjusted life up to this point. I think today I'll just go and kill a lot of my colleagues. That just doesn't happen that way. There's something that's been building up to this. And so one of the things that I know makes a huge difference in relationships of any sort, and that's parents with children, spouses to spouses, friend to friend, colleague to colleague, business person to client, anything, is the power of listening. Really listening. There's a verse in the book of James 1:18, that says, let every person be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. When I see that word swift, I'm a bird watcher, I think of an eagle descending or a falcon, and, just super, super fast. And it's saying, be just that fast, like an eagle descending, be that quick to listen. And then slow, like a slug, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. So I wanted to look at listening a little bit today and dig into that. And listening has saved marriages. It's saved all kinds of relationships. My wife and I went to a marriage encounter seminar last year, not because there was anything wrong. We just wanted to get as good as we could. And the whole thing was centered around listening to each other. You went in separate rooms and you spent some time writing, answering certain questions, and then you gave your answers to the other person to read and just to let it sink in. And then only after they had read it, talk about it. It was a great exercise in listening and in writing. But that's listening, that the testimonies that come from that encounter where they actually got to listen to each other and hear how each other felt. There are many, many stories. It's the stories of marriages being saved. And a couple of weeks ago, I was giving a presentation at for a group of retired people, and we were talking about their stories. And one of the ladies she was retired from the State Department, and it was her job to go overseas and to be like a liaison with countries that we were trying to help develop and work with. And in telling her story, she said that often when she would get there, people had a very, very negative view of the United States. They felt like we just had our way of doing things, that we were just there to shove it down their throat. And wow, aren't there so many people that feel that way? There's probably children that feel that way, and students that feel that way, and people in churches that feel that way, or other religious organizations, and people in businesses, and they feel like their bosses are just there to shove it down their throat, right? We feel that way. And the woman said, and I asked her, I said, well, how did you deal with that? How did you get these people on your team and working together? And she said, I listened to them. She said, I would come in and I would just ask them questions. And they would have their walls up. They would have the defenses in place. They were resistant. She said, but as she asked them questions and listened to their responses, she got to know them, and they began to trust her. And then once she listened long enough and got a level of trust going on, then she said she was able to give them some different options for how we could work together and move forward, and just let them discuss the options. Ask them, what do you think about the options? And have them discuss each one, and then let them make a decision of how to move forward. And I thought that's brilliant. That's just brilliant. You know, nobody's pushing anything on anybody. We're working together now. We're working together. And I've got a few insights about how listening adds value to other people. And I just want to share with you. And a few of them are, number one, new understanding is gain of the other person. I learn very, very little about another person when I'm talking. But if I ask good questions and I really listen to them, I can get to know a lot about them. I can get to understand their personality, their likes and their dislikes, the things that make them come alive, the things that they're passionate about, how they like to be treated, how they like to be talked to. I can learn many, many things about them that I cannot learn when I'm talking. Number two, we have an opportunity to find common ground from which to connect and benefit each other. When I'm listening to somebody, I can find out things about them. I can find the things that they like, and then instead of asking them to come to me and get on my ground, I can, once I understand what their ground is, I can take the steps to get to where they are. When I used to do home visits as a salesperson, I would often look at the people's bookshelves, and I would see if they had a book that was on a topic that I knew something about, and then I would mention the book and introduce that topic, and we would get to talk about something that we had in common, that we both understood something about, and establish some common ground. So finding out about them allows us to get on common ground where we can communicate better. Number three, insight is gained, which can shed light on new ideas for improvement. Basically, if I come to a situation, I've got my ideas. But if I start engaging another person, now we've got two sets of ideas. And if we start discussing it enough, it's very likely that a third idea or maybe a fourth idea is going to arise in the course of the conversation. And we have multiple ideas to choose from, to combine, to work with, so that we have more options. And then we can discuss how to choose the best idea together that we can then agree and move forward on. And I lost track of my numbers, but I think it's 4. Others feel, when I listen to people, others feel understood and appreciated. If a person's trying to talk to you and you're just thinking about the next thing you're going to say, you're not really tuned in, you're not really listening, you're not really hearing where they're coming from, that's going to communicate that you devalue them and you do not appreciate them. But if you do tune in and you really listen, then they're going to gain a sense that, hey, that person appreciates me enough to give of their time to really try to understand me. And number 5, possible conflict can be avoided. I tell you, I don't think there's any better way to get a conflict than to just reject what somebody says over and over and over again. You know, I went back as I was preparing for this, I went back and I looked up the first the major postal incident. If you remember back in the 80s, that term got coined, going postal. And that was after a man had come in and killed 14 co-workers in the post office. But what happened was, the backstory on that is that he had been reprimanded by 2 supervisors the previous day. He had a conflict with the one, and he was reprimanded in this, and then he took it up to the next one and got reprimanded by that one too. Now, I don't know what all happened in those conversations or how much they went out of their way to try to really understand and hear and appreciate this man and work towards a solution together. But I know one thing, he didn't respond very well. He went home, got his ammo together. He was an ex-Marine. He was a handgun instructor. He was an expert marksman. And he came in the next morning and he killed 14 of his colleagues. So who knows how, if somebody had just listened a little different, maybe had a different tone, a little longer conversation, a little more listening, how maybe that conflict could have been avoided. I know there's many others. There's one of my favorite proverbs says that a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up strife. The tone that we respond in, the kindness, the compassion towards people that just lets us, take a step back and de-escalate the tone and show appreciation for them. That can avoid possible conflict. And like I just mentioned, anger is turned away by a gentle response and by listening. It's hard to be angry at somebody when all they're doing is listening. You don't have 2 arguments and somebody goes, boy, they're so argumentative. They just listen all the time. No one ever says that. When you're listening, you're not arguing. You're not having conflict. You're not escalating things. You're trying to understand, and that turns anger away. And then greater buy-in is established in an organization when people are heard. When people are surveyed, when they're asked questions, when their thoughts and their ideas and their feelings are taken into consideration, that gets buy-in. People like to work with people who value them enough to listen to them. One of my mentors, a man by the name of Mark Cole, he told a story of an organization that he's the CEO of. And they were going through some changes in the organization. At the same time, he was bringing a new hire on board. And he didn't want this new hire to get caught blindsided by the changes that were happening. So he called her into the office and just kind of laid out things and explained where they were and where they had been and where they were headed. And when he got done with that, he said, I'd love to get your insights on this and your input. He wanted that. He said, because you've got new eyes. I've been here a while and I'm looking at it through familiar eyes. I want to hear what you think through new eyes. And they talked for about an hour and a half. And when they finished talking, she got ready to turn and leave, and she got to the door and she stopped and she turned back around and she said, Mark, I just want you to know that I have never worked for a company that had a culture like this. And no matter what it is you decide to do, I am 100% in alignment with it because of the time you've taken to talk to me and to listen to me. He allowed her to weigh in, and because she was able to weigh in, she then was able to buy in to whatever decision he made because she knew she was valued. She knew she mattered. She knew she was important. She knew she was heard. She knew her opinion carried weight and counted. And then it's easy to follow somebody who gives you that kind of respect. And then appreciation of the other person and how they think and feel is had. Again, this goes back to we get the story. Once I know the story, I can connect with the person and I can appreciate their thoughts because they might have the best idea yet. I can appreciate their thoughts and I can appreciate their feelings. And every feeling deserves respect. Feelings just happen due to how we're wired and what's going on around us. So feelings aren't good or bad. It's what we do with those feelings. But if we can respect the feelings of another person, say, hey, that's a legitimate feeling. Now let's talk about this. Let's put it out on the table. Let's see if we can come up with some good ideas that'll get your feelings in a good place and your thinking in a good place and get us moving forward together to benefit everyone. If we can do that, then we're going to be winning together. And lastly, appreciation is gained for the listener. Whenever we take the time to listen to someone attentively,